Hi Year 7s, in this video we are going to take you through how to make your apron. So what you're going to need is about 1.5 meters of fabric of your choice. You're going to need some scissors, a pattern that the school is providing you, and you'll also need some strapping, some herringbone tape to pop on around the neck and around the waist of your apron here. So first of all, we are going to look at putting our pattern piece onto our fabric and cutting it out. So every piece of fabric, has two sides. There's a good side and then there's a wrong side or a bad side. So what we're going to do is we're always going to be sewing with our good sides hidden away so that all of our stitching is on the inside, and that way when you are wearing your apron, no one's going to be able to see it. We also have two different edges of fabric. Along the top here is the raw edge, and as you can see it's really uneven. This is the edge that the lady in the shop would have cut for you. And we also have down the side here what are called the selvages. So these are the edges of the fabric that were made in the shop when the fabric was getting made. So they don't fray and they should be nice and straight. So what we're going to do is hold our fabric like this, and we are going to fold our fabric in half, right sides together, and the selvage to selvage. So creating a half of our fabric. We're then going to lay that on our workbench and make sure it's all lined up and nice and neat. Once you have your fabric folded and positioned on the bench, you're going to grab your pattern piece of the apron. Now it's important that this long straight side of the apron goes onto our folded edge of our fabric there. That way when we cut it out, we're going to open it up and we are going to have a full piece of apron. So I'll position that on there. It's also really important to note that with your fabric, you need to be looking out to make sure that there's not one particular way that your apron has to go. So all the pattern here, the pictures are all upside down and everywhere, whereas we've got another one over there that has, all the dogs are facing up the right way. So we'll show you that in a second.
So as you can see with this particular pattern, it can only go in one direction. So looking at my pattern piece here, the short edge at the top is the top, and this is facing the right way. Now I can get ready to get my pins and pin my pattern onto the fabric.
So as you can see, just double checking that the fold of our fabric is there and the long side of our apron pattern is lined up. We're going to go around and pin, especially the corners, but everywhere else. So we're going to prick the pin through and then lift it up through the top, making sure that the pin is staying on the pattern and that it's not hanging over onto the fabric here, otherwise you'll end up cutting it with your scissors. So when we're pinning, make sure that you start pinning this folded edge first so that it can line up perfectly, and then you can push this side of the pattern out so that you're not getting any bumps and crinkles in your pattern or your fabric. So now that our pattern pieces are pinned down and we have no lumps and bumps, it's really important to make sure that you stop here, and before you start cutting out your fabric, that you get your teacher to double check that it has been pinned properly. So please make sure you stop and get a teacher to check before you move on.
So once you've had your pattern checked by the teacher and you've given the all clear to start cutting, really important that when using the fabric scissors, you're taking long strides of the fabric. This will help to keep each of your cuts nice and straight. So as we're cutting around, we want to cut close to the pattern without actually cutting through it. All right, so scissors wide, nice long strides. So I'm going to start across the bottom here first. Okay, now that I've finished cutting, I can take all my pins out, fold the pattern and place it back in its envelope, and we'll be ready to start sewing. Cool. So for my pocket, I've decided that I want a large double pocket at the bottom of my apron. So with my cardboard pattern, I'm just going to butt it up right to the edge of my fabric. I've already traced around it with some tailor's chalk and put in a couple of pins just to hold my fabric flat. I'm now going to go around and cut out my piece.
And for my apron, I've cut out two, but I think I'm only going to have one little single pocket right in the middle of mine.
So for our first step in preparing our aprons, we are going to do a double rolled hem on the straight long side edges of the apron. To do that, we need to actually fold over the fabric twice. Before we start doing that, we're actually going to flip over our fabric so that the wrong side is facing up. So for our double rolled hem, we first need to fold over once, and I want to check that I'm doing this evenly. So I'm going to get my ruler and I'm going to check that I'm only folding it over 1 centimetre. I then can actually use my finger to sort of create a bit of a crease in the fabric, and that will help to hold it down. And then I'm just going to move my ruler up a little bit. Once again, check that it's 1 centimetre and slide my finger down to create a crease in the fabric. Now I'm going to go all the way along until I've done this entire edge before folding it a second time. So now that we've folded over the edge nice and evenly, we're going to fold it a second time, once again 1 centimetre.
This is called a double rolled hem. So it'll be very important if you remember this technique, because we're going to be using it on every edge of our apron. So now that we have gone through and we have measured one of our sides, we need to repeat this on the other side of our apron. Now what's important is that this finger pressing is okay. However, as you can see, it's not 100% sturdy in staying there. So what we're going to do is just 3 pins. You don't need heaps of pins, but we just want to pin up the length of our side here, holding the double rolled hem in place, so that when you head over to the sewing machine, your side seam is held together. What we're going to do is we're going to stop now, and we're going to repeat this on the other side so that we have both of our sides with a 1 centimetre double rolled hem. So as you can see, both of these side seams, one here and one over there, have been folded with a double rolled hem at 1 centimetre. We're now ready to move on to the sewing machine. As you can see, we're at the sewing machine now. I have my machine on a straight stitch, and I've chosen an appropriate colour of thread to match in with my pattern. Now what we need to do is we need to sew on our apron on the closest side here of the hem, okay? So it needs to be on this closest side where it's going to flap up to make sure that we're going to secure that down. We need to sew all the way down. So for me, I'm going to place my foot under the presser foot of my machine, and I'm going to line up the edge of the fabric with the edge of the foot there. You can also use these numbers along here on the plate here to maintain a nice straight stitch. Remember to reverse at the beginning and the end. When you finish sewing, we can simply press the scissor shortcut. It will cut for us, and we are done. So, as you can see, my stitching is closest to this edge here, and now our double rolled hem has been held down. So this is the inside of our fabric, and from this side, all you see is a nice straight line with a thin little stitch along there. So we've done one side, we need to repeat the other now.
Alright, so now that we've finished sewing our 2 side edges, we now need to focus on the top and the bottom of our apron. Very similar to what we've just done for the side, we're going to do a double rolled hem. However, for our top edge, we're going to fold it over 1 centimetre the first time, but then the second time we're actually going to fold it over 3. So once again, using a ruler, going along and checking every now and then. Once I've done the entire top edge, that 1 centimetre, and put in a nice crease. Now going to fold it the second time, 3 centimetres. And once again, run your finger along the edge to help hold it in place. We will again use a couple of pins just to help hold it while we move it over to the sewing machine. Okay, so I've just gone over to the sewing machine, and you can see my stitching nice and close to the edge and straight. So then when we turn it around, we've got a nice even seam.
What we now need to do is do another 1 centimetre double rolled hem down the bottom here. So folding it over 1 centimetre and using our ruler to measure to make sure and pressing it down with our finger as we go. Now the corners might be a bit tricky, so make sure that you're trying to line them up as best you can so that they're not hanging over and that there's a nice 90-degree angle on our apron. So now we have sewn the top, the sides and the bottom of our apron. It is up to the final step, which is to pin and sew these curved edges here. Now, out of all the double rolled hems you'll be doing, these are probably the most difficult as they are a curved edge. However, it is still the exact same thing. You'll need your ruler, and what we're going to do, I always start in the middle at 1 centimeter and press, and then you can easily manipulate it into a curve like that. So this will take time. Make sure you use your ruler, start in the middle and really press down the fabric so it holds its space, because it will not stay as easily as these side edges. So I've done one fold, and as you can see, it is holding up. So now again, start at the middle and do the other fold to create that double rolled hem. That way we're hiding all of those frayed and cut edges, and we're making a really nice finish on the inside of our apron. Beautiful, so both of our curved seams have been hemmed at 1 centimeter and done twice to create a double rolled hem. We're now going to head over to the sewing machine and sew from the top all the way down to the end, remembering to reverse and really take our time, as this is a curved and not just a straight edge. So all of our sides and edges of our apron have now been sewn with a double rolled hem. At this point, it's a really good idea to stop and cut off any loose threads that you may have on any of the corners there. We're now going to move on to show you how to attach the herringbone tape around your neck and around your waist to get the apron sitting exactly where you want it. So when it comes time to measure the herringbone tape that goes around your neck, it's roughly 60 centimeters, or if you want, you can actually measure yourself and see where you would like the top of the apron to sit. Don't forget though that you do need to sew in a couple of centimeters on the bottom of the tape to make sure it's secure to your apron. So 60 centimeters sits up high here, or you can add an extra 10 centimeters to make it sit a little bit lower. It's up to you where you would like it, but we're going to go for 60 centimeters. Now we've cut our herringbone tape for around the neck at 60 centimeters, and all of the herringbone tape that's left over, we're simply just going to fold it in half and cut it right down the middle so that we have half and half to go around both sides of our waist and tie up at the back.
So now I have 2 even side straps that we're going to attach to the sides of our apron. Okay, so for all 3 pieces of our strap, we need to do a double rolled hem on both sides. So what we're going to do, similar to what we've done with hemming our apron piece, we're going to fold over the raw edge 1 centimeter. And once again, you can create a bit of a crease. And then we're going to fold it a second time, 2 centimeters. You can use your ruler to check that you've got that right. And then use a pin to hold that in place. We're then going to move over to the sewing machine, and we're going to sew close to this folded edge to ensure that it stays in place and we're protecting it from continually fraying over time.
Now we've gone ahead and we've done this on both sides of each of our pieces of herringbone tape. So that's 2 sides for the neck, 2 sides for one of the waist attachments, and another 2 sides for the other. So you're going to fold each end 6 times. Now make sure that you are actually folding them into the same side so that they're not backwards, if that makes sense. So both of them have been folded inwards on the exact same side of the herringbone tape there. Now as you can see, these are both the waist straps and our neck strap. They are the same length, and all of our hems have been created on the same side. So we've done 2, 4 and 6, and we are now ready to head over to the sewing machine and sew along this edge here, closest to this edge where the little fold is, so that we keep it down and make sure that our lovely little straps don't fray over time. So as you can see, I have been to the sewing machine and I have sewn right across the bottom, holding down that 1 centimeter fold and then the 2 centimeter fold. This has been done on each edge of our herringbone tape, and we are now going to look at attaching the neck strap. Now it comes time to attach our herringbone tape to the top of our apron in the neck here. So making sure that this edge here, that you can, where the hem is and you can actually see the folded down part, we want to make sure that that is actually facing the wrong side of our fabric, the wrong side, the inside of our apron, so that we have a nice flat edge facing up, so that if people were to look on the inside, it would have a lot of a nicer finish. We also need to make sure that our herringbone tape is not twisted, and we're going to place them right in the corners, maybe 1/2 centimeter in, and we are going to pin them in place and then head over to the sewing machine. So as you can see, we have pinned our herringbone tape into the corners here, and I've put a pin in place. Now when it comes time to sew this, we are actually going to sew a square around the edge of the herringbone tape and then across through the middle. So just like you learnt when you were practicing sewing on the sewing machine, you need to make sure that you leave the needle in on each corner, lift up the presser foot and twist and rotate the fabric to get that nice rectangle or nice square border right around the edge of the herringbone tape. It's important that we do this square and the cross in the middle to make sure that the tape is secured strong to your apron so that it is not going to break. To start off, we're going to start with a knot so that it's not as big and obvious on our fabric. So I'm going to press the knot button just to start, and then I'm going to sew down to the corner, stopping, leaving the needle in and twisting the fabric around. This is how we are doing the border here. Needle in, twist, just maneuver all the bulk fabric around. Keep the needle in, twist. And now that I'm back at the corner, I'm going to start doing my little corner. So I'm going to go diagonally down to the other corner, come across, and then diagonally up to the final corner. Remember, once you get to this final corner, press the knot button and hold your foot down, and it will go up 4 or 5 times. And we are now done. As you can see, we now have a nice border and a nice cross on one of our straps. So we are going to go ahead now and finish off this side here. Our next step now is to attach the herringbone tape to the sides of our apron. So remembering that we want this hem with the folded over edge, we want that facing down so that you can't see it, and it's just going to sit about 1 to 1/2 centimeter just below that curved double rolled hem. So just placed there, and then we're going to use pins again to pin it in place. So that is where it's going to sit, just under this curved edge here. Pinned in place, and you need to head over to the sewing machine, and just like we attached the neck strap, sew a border with a cross in the middle.
Alright, now that we've finished attaching our side straps, we're now finished our aprons. Well done. If you have time, you might decide to put on a pocket. Please speak to your teacher about where you would like to place that and the process of constructing that.
We hope this video was helpful. Thank you.